plugin of the week is the King's Microphones. The King's Microphones is a plugin by Waves that is really not exactly a pure emulation in the way that they normally emulate vintage gear, but more or less an emulation of the filtering characteristics that each of these unique microphones has to offer. So there are three basic microphones: King George V, King George VI, and Queen Elizabeth. Now, these three individual microphones, there were actually many of them that were created, and these three happened to survive. They happened to be repairable, but they were actually created in Abbey Road Studios by EMI. And this was done for the royal family, of course. It's going back to the 1920s and 1930s in terms of their actual creation. So what happens is that these older microphones have a unique characteristic sound. And part of bringing these particular microphones out into the plugin world is not that, how many times are you actually going to be working on, on a movie that's something like in the King's Speech or something like that, which is where the physical microphones were used actually in the movie. But these were, microphones but they actually become effects. I'm sorry, to complete the thought. They become effects that actually can work well when you need a kind of unique filtering effect that has like a vintage vibe to it. Now, the microphones themselves are really kind of unique ones. This is the one here for King George V, and that is actually, the shell of the microphone is actually made of marble, which is kind of cool. It's like a very, very unique kind of thing, and it's a carbon microphone. So the carbon microphones, I'm not even sure exactly how that works. I know there is like it's like carbon dust that is basically put in that must create some kind of an electrostatic barrier or something with a diaphragm that's placed outside of it. And of course, those carbon microphones are a long way from perfect, but they actually work. And then there are two other microphones, which are moving coil dynamic microphones, which is King George VI. This was created in the mid-30s, 1936, and Queen Elizabeth's microphone. So you could see they have the coat of arms and some unique things. So the first one was made with a marble casing. This is silver all the way around. Very unique. Interestingly cool crafted microphone. So these were emulations of the three that were repairable. Actually, apparently the people who were making the movie or doing the audio for the movie kind of stumbled across these, quote unquote, accidentally, in the EMI or Abbey Road lockers. They must have all kinds of vintage gear that has not seen the light of day in not centuries, but decades. But these were pulled out and repaired specifically for that purpose. So how are they cool? Well, let's take a listen. Basically, if I set it up here on a vocal mic with something, I can get unique filtering sounds. Now, each one has three different settings, which is a close setting, which is about, I would say, about 5 centimeters off. So which that about 2 inches, something along those lines. And then the second setting is about 40 centimeters off. So if we do the math on that, that's probably closer to 8 inches or so. And then you have what they call a natural setting. So I'm not sure exactly what that distance is. But these were actually microphones that were used in public addresses and important speeches that the royal family would give. And so here with the settings, we can actually listen. You can hear, let's hear it with bypassed first, and then let's get on to an area where we can.
Soon it shall pass, the wine in your glass, a scratch in your throat, honey hands.
So here you can hear those unique characteristics. Maybe for the female voice, we should use Queen Elizabeth.
Moon is brand new, dirt into bread, lucky few.
So let's go back.
Soon it shall pass, the wine in your glass,
and go to King George VI.
Scratch in your throat, honey hands. Eat or be fair. The moon is brand new.
So the third setting sounds the most natural, but you can hear that there's like a series of really unique filters. And then you also have a gain control. So this is primarily what you're doing. You're picking from 3 microphones and 3 different distance settings. And you can just sort of toggle through the different ones to find the settings that you like. And then the gain control also allows you to overdrive. So it's just like an input gain control. So you can overdrive it a little bit or basically set it so that it's working in its optimal range if the input level is lower. So let's hear it in the track and just kind of go through some different settings.
It shall pass. The wine in your glass.
That's very cool.
Splash in your throat, honey has.
Very haunting.
Don't be fair. Moon is brand new. Dirt into bread. Lucky few.
So let's go through yours.
It shall pass. The wine in your glass. Scratch in your throat, honey has. Don't be fair. Moon is brand new. Dirt into bread. Lucky few.
So really kind of cool. I kind of like one of the first 2 settings, so that and so it's really, like very cool just for like a quick vibe where if you were trying to manufacture these particular types of filtering effects, you would never get it perfectly. Like I think actually the diaphragm on the other 2 King George and Queen Elizabeth microphones are not flat, but they're more cone shaped, and which is kind of an interesting design, which makes sense with that sort of characteristic, like that funnel kind of quality that's in there. And here I can also do the same thing here on the male voice.
The moon is brand new, dirt into bread, lucky view, lucky view.
So let's see if we can.
It shall pass. The wine in your glass, scratch in your throat, honey has. We will be fair. The moon is brand new. Dirt into bread, lucky view, lucky.
So you can hear all the different combinations, and I kind of got them mixed up there in terms of the different ones I was working on. But the idea here, just in having them side by side, if I'm going to kind of bring them out here, is that I can also overdrive the settings and get a bit more of a distortion kind of characteristic. And of course, this is going to bring up the volume. So I'm just going to pump up the volume, if you will, here. Let's just see what happens.
It shall pass. The wine in your glass.
And then let's see, the lead vocals, I can bring them down together here.
It shall pass. The wine in your glass. Scratch in your throat, honey has. Please don't be fair. The moon is brand new. Dirt into bread. Lucky few, lucky view. Soon it shall pass.
Anyway, that kind of brings out a bit more of the distortion. involved with that, and that's kind of so you're really just like overdriving the input, and it wasn't really necessarily designed for that. In the manual, it actually just kind of says to do this to get it to work at its optimal range. So if you have less gain coming in, you could just use that to make up gain. So it wasn't designed necessarily to overdrive the sound, but it does have like add to the characteristic of, and you can see how it really can fit in like a mix setting for a particular track with the right type of track where you're looking for that type of effect. So there you have it, the King's microphones. Really cool, very unique, interesting plugin that is from the Abbey Road collection from Waves.